Welcome, Brittany, to the Biohacker Babes. Thank you so much for joining us.
I am so excited to be here. This is so overdue. I'm just so excited about this conversation. Ever since we met last year in person, I'm just, yeah, looking forward to it.
Yay,
Yeah,
us
us
too.
too. Us
I
too.
guess we finally got to meet at the Biohacking Conference last summer in Orlando, but we've known each other for a while. As you know, you have a very strong, amazing female voice in the biohacking space, and it's just been so great to follow your journey, especially on Instagram and your podcast. You're just doing amazing things. So it's an honor to have you on our show today. So
Thank you so much. Yeah.
yeah. So we are going to talk about an awesome topic that is very near and dear to my heart, preconception, pregnancy. We're going to get into a lot of really great stuff for women and men today. Men, we are not going to leave you out because you are half of the equation when we are talking about making a baby. So you're here too. But I think, it's really important to talk about how I think pregnancy for some people is like almost like an afterthought. It's like, oh, I'm 4 weeks pregnant. Now I need to change my diet. I need to take my multivitamin or my prenatal, all these things. But really, preconception planning is so important. And you know so much about this topic. So I want to kick it off with, well, first of all, let me share with everyone. You do have a course that you just launched. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So it's called Baby Steps,
Mhm.
7 weeks. It's 90-day preconception protocol. We're going to get into the details of that. But to kick us off, why do you feel like preconception planning is so important, especially in today's toxic world?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's about 1 in 6 couples now struggle with infertility, and that rate is only increased in the last few decades. And about a year and a half ago, when I started thinking about conceiving myself, I kind of had this very biohacker mindset of how do I optimize my health before I do this? And I looked around, I looked at the research, I looked online, and I really didn't see a lot of people focusing on this area. A lot of the conversation was, just try to get pregnant. And if you can't do it, then learn how to be healthy. Then let's talk about fertility health and things that you can do. But my perspective was, okay, how do I actually be proactive about it and not even go down that avenue of potential infertility and potential issues? And now it's kind of getting better. More and more people are talking about being proactive and what we can do to even prevent that. But a lot of the conversation, again, is very reactive. It's a very almost like a Western medicine way of going about it. Like, there's a problem. Oh, let me try and fix it now versus let me just optimize my health before we even have a problem in the first place. So that is kind of the gap that I saw in the market and the gap that I saw for myself as well. And then once I started doing the research and actually looking into how can we have a healthier baby? How can we have healthier sperm from the male side? Like, what can we do? There's so much research around what you can actually do, but we're just kind of not really focusing on it, or we're not really doing it until those issues arise. So I wanted to kind of be at the forefront before we could get there.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's much like how we respond to being in pain. Like no one really does
Yeah.
anything until there's actually a fire. And I think everything that you said is so empowering. And the harsh reality is that if you are struggling with infertility, or if you're going through IVF or fertility treatments and it's not catching or it's not successful the first time, I mean, that's a survival mechanism, right? To protect your body. It means that it's not the right environment for it. And so I think, yes, doing the planning ahead of time is just so crucial. So we're excited for you to share that information. Where do we start? Like how soon? How by individual it is? If you want to drop into either of those categories, or like how did you start thinking about this for yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So originally, it kind of went back a few years ago where I was on birth control for 7.5 years before I knew any better and came off of birth control and, kind of let my cycle fluctuate and try to regulate. And a few years past that, I was having very irregular menstrual cycles. Despite being arguably pretty healthy, it was still irregular. And one day I went to a walk-in clinic. I went to a doctor and she basically said, "Hey, I think you might have PCOS because of these symptoms. Like, you have some cysts on your ovaries, you have irregular cycles, so you have 2 out of the 3 things that you need." And that like shook me because anytime you have any type of somewhat health diagnosis, it's very debilitating in the beginning. And there's kind of two ways you can react, right? Like you can let it define you and this becomes something that you deal with and acknowledge and just, be somebody with PCOS. Not that that's a bad thing, but it's like one of these things that you use to describe yourself. Or you can look at putting it into remission and what can you do to heal that and move forward from it and overcome it. And so that's kind of the approach that I took, and really started me on this journey of hacking hormones and hacking my hormonal health and learning about the menstrual cycle really deeply and understanding what I could do. And so through that, I was able to regulate my ovulation, regulate my menstrual cycle, and eventually, a few years later, I got to the point of thinking about fertility. And I started about a year and a half, I think it was a year and a half before I got pregnant, of, okay, now's the time to really optimize before we start trying. And again, I went down this rabbit hole of like research and trying to look for things and wasn't happy with what I saw. But I ended up doing a bunch of things. I ended up starting acupuncture, changing how I was working out, started avoiding specific substances that I knew would impact my egg quality, things like alcohol, cannabis. Not that I was really ever consuming a lot of it, but like really, really cutting it out like cold turkey. Increasing my water intake, changing how I exercised, just kind of like tweaking all the different areas of my life in order to put fertility first. And so through that journey of learning what to do on a piece of paper, I actually wrote out, I still have it somewhere, like the 6 things that I would do every single day to optimize my fertility. And that is actually the like cornerstone, the pillars of the baby steps protocol is what I wrote on that piece of paper. And so that's what I started employing and started doing. And yeah, I was able to heal the cysts on my ovaries, regulate my menstrual cycle, don't have any hormonal symptoms. And then we started trying to conceive and we got pregnant on the very first try. And it was shocking because I didn't think that that was going to happen.
It's incredible.
Like, yeah. So I went into trying, and we can talk more into detail about it, but I went into trying with the mindset of, I just want to get pregnant in the next year. And if that happens, I would be happy. And to people out there who maybe have not started trying yet, but are going to try soon, this is the mindset that I would actually recommend because it's so much easier on yourself if there's less pressure and easier on you and your partner if there's less pressure versus like, oh, I thought I would get pregnant right away. Why didn't it happen? And now I feel disappointed and angry. Maybe there's something wrong. Anyway, so so we did my baby steps protocol for 90 days right before we started trying, got pregnant on the very first try. And then I was like, okay, I think I need to share this with more people.
Yeah.
Amazing.
You're 1 for 1. That's pretty good odds there.
Yeah.
What were the 6? Can you share the 6 cornerstone, or is that the secret sauce of the program?
I mean, it's the secret sauce of the program, but it's like, I'm happy to share it because I've shared it before and it's not like it's like it's something that's like even remotely something you haven't heard of, right? So the way that I wrote it out, it actually is like the acronym WHALES, which is like so silly, but it's just how I remember it. So and I actually modeled it off of 75 hard a little bit, if you know what 75 hard is. Yeah. So 75 hard is like the health challenge where you do these like 6 things every single day for 75 days. So I took that and I was like, okay, I'm going to tweak this and change this. I'm going to do 6 things every single day for fertility for 90 days, because that's what the research shows is you need about 3 months in order to improve egg quality and improve sperm quality is like you need 90 days. So the first one is sticking to whole foods only. So no processed food. Now, no processed food is like, it means, oh, sorry, hold on. Oh, the movers are calling me. Oh, sorry. Okay. No processed food is like basically anything that comes in a box. So like no crackers, no cookies, no cereal, even though we love those things. Sticking to things like fruits, vegetables, animal protein. I'm definitely not vegetarian or vegan or anything like that. And really just looking at how do we increase the nutrient profile every single day when we are eating. And as a nutritionist, I know quite a lot about this. So that one was kind of easy for me to do, but it is a bit of a change in the beginning for people, especially if you are somebody who likes to eat kind of like quick snacks or likes the high that you can kind of get from these processed foods.
Yeah. And maybe
Yeah.
some gray area, because there's like the quote unquote healthy snacks. It's like we can get organic jerky in a wrapper, but it's in a
Yeah.
wrapper, or we can get gluten-free crackers, but it's in a box. So
Yeah.
how do we draw the line for ourselves? I'm assuming that you would say it's really comes down to a bio individual perspective and upgrading from wherever you are starting. Is that what you would say? Like wherever your baseline is, we just want to upgrade.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I think that's a great way to look at it. I think for me, I tried my best to just not have anything that was processed at all. But I talk about this in my course. Sometimes it's easier for people to kind of upgrade, like you said, versus kind of doing a cold turkey approach, right? So like one day you're eating crackers and the next day everything has to be in the fridge and it has to be 100% from the earth. So I think there is like this, depends on your personality. It depends on the type of person you are. I think there's different ways to go about it. But even if we aim for like 90% of real food, like food that has minimal ingredients, right? So if you're buying jerky, like flip over the package and what does it actually say on there? Is it like jerky, salt, sugar, whatever, preservative, you know what I mean? Or is it just like a couple of ingredients and then maybe it actually can fit in better and it kind of works a bit better for you.
Yeah. So focusing on
Yeah.
minimal ingredients. But yeah, I think like having some grace with yourself if it is a long journey for
Yeah.
you to go. Of course, people like us that we've been living this nutrition stuff for our whole lives. It's like, no problem, 100%. But I think it's harder for some people. And so I love the name of your course, Baby Steps. I'm just curious, is that also a play on words? Like we're taking baby steps to move forward?
Yeah, I guess it is. I don't even know when I first wrote that down. It was quite a while ago. But yeah, like every day, if you do the protocol for 90 days, it is baby steps, right? Like it is like every day a little step matters. And even when I worked with clients, like I had this same philosophy of even like this, the smallest healthy habit you do actually does make a difference. It's not like if you go into a sauna once, it doesn't make a difference. It doesn't move the needle. Yes, it does. It actually does add up. And even if you just get the benefit in that moment of time, you're actually still teaching yourself and like practicing and exercising that muscle of choosing to do something healthier. And so then the next time you go and do it, it's going to be easier. So that's my philosophy with health in general is every little healthy decision you make makes a difference. And I just really encourage people to like try to remember that and not be discouraged.
Oh,
Such a great
I love
perspective. Yeah,
that.
because we hear a lot in biohacking. It's like if you can't do it all the time, don't do it. But I like that kind of emotional flip of like, no, we've kind of broken the barrier. We've tried it once. It's not scary or unfamiliar.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And
Yeah.
honestly, like I love biohacking, for sure, but it can be exhausting when you
Sure.
you look at it and it's like every single day you're supposed to do a cold plunge and a sauna and intermittent fast and get 10 hours of sleep and do like all of this
And your
stuff.
red light and your brain tap. I know. And I'm guilty of that too. Like I get to the end
Yeah.
of the day and I'm like, God, I didn't do my red light today. How did I go a whole day and not do it? And I'm like, but Renee, you did the sauna, you worked out, you did your brain tap. It's like, I know it's
Mhm.
hard. It's hard to
Yeah.
not
Because
feel
it's
like you
fun
have to
and
do it all.
exciting. We like these things, but yeah, it's just not reasonable or practical to do
Oh.
everything every single day. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
ex
Yeah.
exactly. And there's seasons of stuff, right? Like, so, I mean, if depends how you're feeling. Maybe you are doing brain tap more often because you need that in your career and your business right now, or personally, I don't know. Um, so
Mhm.
I think there's
Yeah.
seasons of it, but I have, yeah, I have a lot of biohacking tech that kind of just sits in my office,
I
Like
have
sadly.
like
Renee's graveyard.
I have like a stack of things over there and I'm like, I should donate these or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel bad. There's like dust on
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
time and a place, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah.
don't get overwhelmed. Yeah. I think like be a cheerleader for yourself for everything that you do. I love that. I think everything does add up. Um,
Yeah.
Brittany, I'm so curious. Like, what about your husband? Was he on board with this? Because I hear that a lot. Like the women are like, yeah, I'm going to
Yeah.
do all the things. And like they can't get their men to stop drinking alcohol or stop smoking weed, like some of the things like that, or changing their diet. So how was that?
Totally. Totally. So yes, my husband was on board. However, there was definitely some education that needed to happen there. And it kind of slowly happened over time. Mind you, like I didn't have everything packaged nicely in this course that I have now to kind of show him. But we would listen to podcast episodes together. Like Andrew Huberman put out a podcast last year. I think it was like 5 hours on how to optimize fertility for men and women. And so we listened to that driving down the car on a road trip one time and just kind of educating him and explaining to him, hey, like there is so much that we can do to optimize your sperm. Like there is so much because men make new sperm every single day. And by the time that it's like fully matured and actually like comes out of them, it's about 90 days later. So they have so much control. Like they have so much control of what they can do. And so explaining that to my husband, like, hey, the sperm that you create today, like that's only going to come 3 months from now. So let's think about when we want to start to conceive or start to try and what can we do? Like, let's backtrack and let's make sense and let's make you have or help you have healthier decisions today so that your sperm can be healthier. And again, I went through the research with him and it's pretty alarming what affects sperm quality. Like cannabis for sure. Like, unfortunately, like, you
Yeah,
know,
it's a big one.
yeah, it's affects like sperm motility, morphology, sperm count, but also decreases testosterone and libido. And so even if you have a great sperm count, maybe you don't feel like you are up to trying as often as you might need to every single month. Uh, Alcohol as well. Alcohol is not great at all for fertility at all. And so we really had to go through it. And at the end of the day, what he said to me was, if you need me to be super duper healthy for 90 days for us to have a baby for the rest of our life, then I'm going to do that. And so that was the end of the discussion. And then we started it on Monday and that was that.
When you put it like that,
Awesome.
that's such a small commitment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can do this.
Yeah.
90 days for your kid to have a healthy life for hopefully 100 years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. And then when you talk about like how I have to be pregnant for 9 months and you're like, okay, you can do something for 3 months. I think you're fine. Okay. Like,
Yeah.
Teeny tiny ask here. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
What about testing? Did you do any sperm testing or testing for yourself, biological age, hormone testing? What did you go through?
Yeah, we did. So for my husband, we tested his sperm. And so we tripled his sperm count. And again,
Wow.
I know this was not something that I thought was going to happen. So he's 30, he's 31. Yeah. So we looked at his sperm parameters beforehand and they were like pretty good. Like he was decently healthy. So I wasn't necessarily worried about moving the needle too much with it. It wasn't like he had a low sperm count and this was going to be an issue. But then when we got the numbers back after he cleaned up his act every single day for 3 months, I was like, wow, this makes a big difference. So we tripled his sperm counts. And
Wow.
that was really impressive. And then I also tested, what was I doing? I was doing a few different brands, looking at my nutrient levels, looking at my hormone levels, just making sure that things were kind of balanced on my end. With women, it's a little trickier because with egg quality, you can't necessarily test it. Not really. Like there's AMH, but there's debate on AMH. So yeah, it's a little harder with women.
Yeah. With sperm, I'm curious, did you find anything else to be really helpful? Like Did you address EMFs or
Yeah. Yeah.
environmental stuff?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's part of one of the steps with the protocol is the L, which stands for lifestyle and biohacks in brackets. Um, and for men, this is definitely includes EMF and radiation exposure. So because the testicles hang outside of the body, whereas the woman's ovaries are inside the body, they are much more susceptible to the harmful effects of EMF. And so things that I would do for him would be I would see him, with his laptop on his lap, and I would put a EMF shielding blanket between his lap and the laptop every time. It drove me crazy. And I was like, come
Yeah.
on.
I do the same thing for my husband. I have like the Defender Shield laptop shield, and like it's so easy.
Yeah.
Just put it under the laptop. It's so easy.
That's literally, yeah, I have the same one. That's funny.
Yeah.
And then we also, so we're big into like sauna and steam room and stuff. And honestly, it's not super great for men for fertility because heat reduces sperm count and sperm parameters. So what we did was he would go in at less. It was also summertime, so we weren't doing it as much. But I bought these boxers. I think they're called snowballs. I think they're called
Oh,
snowballs. And
yes, I've
you
heard
know
of
what I'm talking
this.
about? Yeah. And so
Yeah.
they have this like little pouch where you put ice in them. And so he would wear these boxers in the steam room with the
Oh,
ice in
my
there to keep his
gosh.
testicles cold.
That's commitment right there.
What was the
Yeah.
moment when you were like, "Hon, you got to wear these"?
Yeah, exactly. Well, because we're doing all these things, and then I see him going in the steam room after every workout, and I'm like, oh, this could just be like reversing all the hard work. So let me look into it.
Yeah, you're like, all I can
And
think about is your balls, and
yeah,
it's
and it
about
was
our baby.
yeah, and it was funny because it's like public, right? We're in like a public gym. So it's he just has this like bathing suit on, I guess, and then underneath is like these boxers with ice and nobody knows except for me and him.
That's hilarious.
I
Yeah.
love that. Love that
Yeah.
intervention. Yeah.
Yeah. So
What a
things
great
like that.
invention.
Yeah. And just watching heat as well from like his phone and radiation from his phone. So always making sure Bluetooth is turned off, always keeping it outside of his pocket, things like that. I definitely had to kind of help him with the lifestyle part of this more than maybe some of the other habits that we were doing, but he got there, and I think it did make a difference. Mind you, there's so many things you can do. Like you can buy like a phone case that blocks radiation and stuff as well. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, like distance is our friend. And I feel like there's a lot of debate on are those devices actually shielding? Or are they absorbing?
Yeah.
Are they making your tech work harder? So I think like avoidance is probably the best, but I love the like just slipping the blanket under.
Mhm.
Did you ever watch Sex in the City? Were you a fan of that
Uh,
show?
I've seen about like half of it. Yeah.
So you remember the character Charlotte, the kind
Mhm.
of like Upper East
Mhm.
Side, more conservative one. So she marries Harry, and they have this moment in their relationship where she's like, "Harry, I want you to feel so comfortable. I want you to just be yourself." So he decides that he's gonna just be naked around the house all the time. And she has all this white furniture. And so he's like sitting down just with his junk out. And so she's constantly like following behind him to like put a towel down or a mat. And imagining he's doing that with like EMF shield blanket, like, no,
Yeah.
honey, just hold
Yeah.
on.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
I remember that episode. It's so good.
That's
So good.
funny.
Be
Yeah.
yourself, but we gotta like, do the extra little
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you
Yeah.
definitely feel a little crazy sometimes when you're doing it, but
But you never know what we were
you never
preventing or
know.
optimizing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and EMF in general is a whole rabbit hole is a rabbit hole in itself because I really don't think we understand the negative impacts yet. Like I really
Yeah.
feel like you and I or the three of us can hop on a podcast in 10 years or 20 years and then we would be like, wow, now we understand
Yeah.
what iPhones are actually doing to our health, you know?
I
Yeah.
So,
know.
I mean, there's
Yeah.
good research just like putting a phone, like in a male's pocket it for 10 minutes and then the sperm count, I don't remember what the percentage, it drops by like 50% or something in like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So, I
A
mean, if
lot
you
of
can
that
see
is
it
the
that
heat,
fast.
right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
the heat that it produces.
Probably.
Mhm.
Probably. But
Yeah.
what about like EMF protective clothing? Like I know you're a fan of like June a Day for women.
Yep.
anything for your husband? Did he wear like the boxer brief things or anything?
Yeah, so we do have a couple of different boxers. I forget what brands we have that I've tried before. But again, I think to your point is like, proximity is our best bet here. And
Yeah.
it was just kind of what we worked on. I would also turn the Wi-Fi off at night. That also helped. I also, yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of other things you could do. Just trying to get him not to use wireless headphones. That was a challenge as well, because he works at home and, he's always using the wireless ones. But it's a struggle because in general, EMF, a lot of things that emit EMF are very convenient in our life. And so you're really, really combating convenience with these proposed health benefits. But if someone doesn't believe that there are actually health benefits, they're going to go towards the convenience. So it's always kind of this upward battle I found. But I just grin and bear and I do the battle anyway. But yeah.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
been there. That resonates immensely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else about lifestyle? I would love to ask about nutrition, unless you feel like there's something else you want to share in there.
What else did I do with lifestyle? Yeah, focus obviously on blue light during the day, red light at night. Making sure that you're getting enough sleep is part of lifestyle as well, and explaining that. And then in the biohack section of that for women, in my course, I included a bunch of different things that I did in order to that were kind of like extra that I added in that aren't necessarily part of the daily protocol, but things that have been proven to improve egg quality and being able to conceive. So things like acupuncture was huge for me. I started doing yoni steaming or vaginal steaming. I don't know if you've ever done that or talked about that on your show, but
We
that
haven't.
Actually, no. Yeah, we haven't.
oh my goodness, I need to hook you up with the Leah Moon is the name of the company that I have, and it's yeah, so cool. It's like it's a yoni seat, so you sit on it, and there's red light therapy that comes up through it to your vagina and parts like that. And then there's also herbs that come in the pot and it steams these herbs. So you're getting the herbal benefits, you're getting the yoni steaming benefits and red light therapy all in one chair. So cool.
Say the name again. Leah?
It's Leah Moon. So
Okay.
Leia Moon, Moon. I can introduce you guys. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So yeah, so including things like that and educating people on the benefits of that. And a lot of the benefits of things like using red light therapy down there or using yoni steaming or vaginal steaming has to do with the increase in blood flow. And when we're bringing more circulation to that area, we're bringing more oxygen, we're bringing more nutrients that are in the blood. And so that makes a big difference, especially when we're kind of sitting all day and we're not really like giving much love to our womb. When we can kind of do that, it can really really be opening and supportive for the menstrual cycle in general.
Yeah, wonderful. I love
Yeah.
That's new. Okay, we're pinning
Okay.
that. Episode coming soon. More about the yoni steaming.
Yeah.
So in terms of nutrition, I'm still just like so fascinated with the title baby steps. I'm assuming that going into conception, you had all these ideas of what your nutrition might look like. But I've also heard that once you actually got there, you're like, oh gosh, it's not really what I had planned for. I can't eat as perfectly as I wanted to, of course, because of nausea, cravings. Can you talk a little bit about how you approached that? I'm sure it took a lot of sort of like self-compassion to be like, it's okay to not eat perfectly.
Yeah. You mean for pregnancy? Like once you're pregnant? Yeah, this was very challenging, very challenging. I was sick for about 6 weeks at the end of first trimester so kind of like week 6 to week 12-ish. And it was rough. It was really, really rough. And some women are so sick that they don't eat anything and they lose weight. And then you're looking at like nutrient depletion, and that can be really harmful. But for me, it was I felt more sick when my stomach was empty. So then I just started eating every like 2 hours, which was way more than I ever ate before, ever. Uh, and I would only be able to really eat things that were super processed, which was completely the opposite of what I did during baby steps and fertility and preconception. Um, and I didn't want any animal protein. I had all these weird aversions, and it was really, really hard. And the way that I kind of got through it was I I had a lot of grace for myself, and I took the perspective of this is just a phase. And that was like my mantra. So when I was like throwing up all the time, or not even throwing up, just feeling nauseous, I was like, this is just a phase, like this is going to end. And so even if I'm eating more carbohydrates and more processed food that I normally do right now, because that's all I can stomach, that is better than me not being able to eat anything or restricting my diet or feeling more sick. And I will be able to come out the other side of this and make healthier choices. And that's exactly what happened. Like once second trimester hit, I felt phenomenal. Like I felt so good. And so my diet went back to exactly the same. I went like cut out all processed food again. Like there was no bagels and cereal and like easy things that I was grabbing. I just felt normal. So I was able to kind of like hopefully balance it out. But yeah, it was really hard. It was definitely hard.
Mm. Oh,
Yeah. And I'm sure knowing as
Yeah.
much as you do, it's like, oh, I have this schedule and I want to follow this. But the actuality is your body is in control at that point, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And then it's
mm,
hard because like then you feel guilty, right? And then you
Mm.
feel like, oh, I'm eating this thing that is like a void or devoid of nutrients, but it's all I can kind of stomach right now. And even when my husband would make me like dinner and put it in front of me and say it was like chicken and veggies, I don't know, like I would just look at it and be like, I don't want to eat that. Like that is so unappealing. Like I can't eat that. Like and it's really difficult. And I'm grateful that it was a short amount of time. Like 6 weeks was a short amount of time. I mean, I wish it was shorter, but I have a friend
yeah.
who was nauseous her entire pregnancy, like
Mm.
Oh,
all 9 months, right
Oh,
until she gave birth. Yeah. So,
oh, God, I have so much compassion for that because
yeah,
nausea is the worst.
yeah,
yeah.
It's just so uncomfortable. But I mean, you
Yeah.
have to
yeah,
feel good that like you know that you went into it so healthy. Like your body was flooded with nutrients when
yeah,
you were planning. And 6 weeks is really not much when you think about not that the average American is the goal, but the average American is eating those processed foods their whole life before
yeah,
conception,
yeah,
during pregnancy. Don't want to do that, but 6 weeks is just a blip.
yeah.
And you have to just do what feels right in the moment.
Yeah. Yeah. The hard thing is like, especially when it's your first pregnancy, you don't know if you're going to be that woman who it lasts all 9 months. So when it
Mm.
starts, that was my concern. I was like, what if this symptom is here to stay? And I did all of the biohacks. Like I did all the ginger this, acupuncture, acupressure, massage, whatever people told me could help. I did all of it. And nothing really helped that much, to be honest. Like nothing really made it go away. Um, and so, yeah, it's pregnancy is not for the weak,
Yeah, I
I
bet.
guess.
I bet.
Yeah.
I'm sure
Yeah.
it's like an amazing lesson in patience and grace because there's
Yeah.
no way around it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually have to record or release my second trimester experience. So I recorded episodes first trimester, second trimester, then I'm going to do one third trimester on the realities of actually being pregnant and uh not just like, hey, here's like biohacks you can do, but like how it actually feels. And what was so difficult for second trimester was you start gaining weight, but you don't look pregnant, but you're gaining weight. And it's really mentally hard, especially as someone in the health space and any woman out there who has ever had body image issues or struggles, because you don't have a belly that's like round and this bump and like you're so cute, blah blah blah. Like you're just kind of gaining weight and your body's changing. And it was really difficult to go through that around month 5, and kind of accept that it's okay that my body no longer looks like it once did, and I'm supposed to be gaining weight is like a very weird mental shift. Uh,
Yeah, I
yeah,
bet.
Yeah.
it was really hard. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the mindset around that. What about,
Mhm.
did you add in like any other nutrients, like when you felt like you couldn't really eat the whole food diet? Like I'm assuming like a prenatal or organ capsules, anything like that to kind of offset?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was on prenatals during the preconception prep, and that's part of it is like the supplement stack is what I talk about in the course. And then that I continued when I was pregnant. And something that I do recommend to people or women is if you are struggling with nausea, get a prenatal that is actually a powder and add it to water, because I found it was really hard to swallow capsules, like
Mm,
really take supplements. I was just like, oh, like you just want to gag, you know? And so I would
yeah.
take one, and I did my research so much on which prenatals to take, what makes sense, what is activated, what is the most absorbable form of these nutrients. And so because I kind of had that, it definitely made me feel better, kind of like a safety blanket. But I know a lot of people don't like that when you say like, "Oh, I'm on a prenatal. That's all I need to do when I'm pregnant." Um, but yeah, it definitely did help. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Any advice for individualizing supplement routines, or is that in the book? Is that maybe just like a preview, or what do we need
Yeah.
to know per
Yes.
female?
Yeah. So definitely, yeah. I mean, individualizing. I mean, in general, with individualizing, you need to get tested. So we really need to start with that base. Whether you do something that's like an at-home test that looks at different nutrients, vitamins, minerals, things like that, we kind of just need to know where your levels are at before we can make serious recommendations or tweak things a lot. So that's what I
Mhm.
would recommend to people is get tested. And thankfully now, like those at-home tests are very accessible. Like there are tons of companies that are doing them now, which is great. So maybe get tested, and then you can look at the supplement stack that I recommend, that most people recommend for fertility, and then tweak it. I definitely added in things that are very like biohacky,
Nice.
because I just knew that I also wanted to be focusing on detoxing and autophagy and cellular health at the same time of preparing my body for pregnancy. Because during pregnancy, you don't really want to be detoxing. That's not really the time for it. And so I knew that I wanted to add in things that were above and beyond, you know, an electrolyte supplement and a prenatal during that time.
Mm-hmm. At what
Yeah.
point did you stop the kind of detox phase? And can you share some of those like biohacky stuff? Because we love it.
Yeah, yeah. So I stopped basically, I guess it depends on the supplement. So anything that's really focused on autophagy and cellular turnover, I basically stopped once I got pregnant. It's not that you can't take that or things that like boost NAD levels. You know, there are some people who say like, yeah, you can take that. That's fine. I just kind of stopped taking it every day religiously. So I kind of like almost eased it down and like reduced the dosage. Things that I did continue to take and I still take is like fatty 15. I don't know if you guys know fatty 15.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah. So that's really important. And if you think about it, you know, they're the first omega that, no, not omega, essential fatty acid that has been found in the last 90 years. And if you think about essential fatty acids in the body, they really help with cellular integrity. And we want really healthy cell walls. And of course, we want that for pregnancy. So when I was looking at how their supplement works, I was like, okay, this makes sense for me to continue to take. And
Hmm.
so I continued that one throughout pregnancy. Sometimes I'll take a break and maybe I will take an omega-3. But that's like an example of one that not a lot of people would ever take pregnant, but I've taken.
Yeah, totally.
That
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
what about any other like environmental cleanup stuff that you did? I know you recently moved, but like
Mhm.
yeah, anything like in your home or environment. What did you do there?
Yeah, absolutely. So I definitely took a look at my environment and what I was exposed to toxin wise. And I kind of did this over time. And that's always kind of the recommendation because it can be a little pricey, to be honest, to like swap out everything in your kitchen in one day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I talk about this in the lifestyle component of how can we reduce the toxins that we're exposed to. So, for example, I got rid of and I donated all of my plastic Tupperware cups, anything in the kitchen that's basically plastic. And I bought glass Tupperware, right? So that's so easy. And
Yeah.
then we have like ceramic cups and ceramic bowls or things like that. And so, and then we bought like wooden utensils and we got rid of the plastic in any utensils as well that we would use for cooking or baking or stuff like that. So that was one that I did. And then I also took out nonstick pans, which I
Mm,
had for a while. And that one I've been meaning to do for so long. But then you have this, we had like a whole set. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
we had a whole set of like, I don't know, 10 pans, whatever
Oh,
it was.
that's tough. That's
I
tough.
know.
And
Yeah.
they're so nice for the eggs, you know.
I
It's
I
know
hard,
it's
know.
so
hard to give up.
easy.
I know.
Did you find a good brand of pans that you really like?
Yeah. So we swapped the pans out for iron pans, like cast
Cast
iron.
iron?
So
Okay.
yeah, so everything's cast iron, which there's definitely a learning curve with. Like you have to understand how to heat it up, how to wash it correctly so you don't ruin it.
Mhm.
And then
Right.
for pots we bought stainless steel, like 100% stainless steel.
Okay.
And that was kind of the swap that I made. And I actually recently had someone reach out who is in my course and we were talking about this and she pointed out that there's not a lot of stainless steel or cast iron baking ware. And I hadn't even thought about baking ware because I bake a lot. And then I'm looking at my stuff and it's like the cupcake molds and the cupcake holders and like the cake tins and like the muffin pans and everything is like just, I guess, non-stick or just whatever it's made of. And I was like, oh man. So that's what I'm
Yeah.
kind of looking at now is I'm looking at all my baking stuff and I'm like, wow, this is not super great.
Mm. Well,
Different
do you know
layers.
Erin Knight? Are you familiar with her? She's in the
Mm-mm.
biohacking space. She just started this company called Earth and Aesthetic. It hasn't fully launched yet, but it's about to.
Mm.
She went through a fertility journey and talked about it on our podcast recently. She's creating this
Nice.
whole line of home cookware products that
Cool.
are free of plastics, PFAs, even like the
Yeah.
wooden stuff that sometimes has a plastic coating on it, where we think like wood is safe, but not always. I'm assuming she
Yeah.
has some bakeware in there. So we'll send
Nice.
it your way.
Yeah, no, please do. That
Yeah.
would be great. That's a
I know.
really
I'm
good idea.
excited for her to launch that. It's so needed. It's so needed. I know, like, I keep hearing more and more every day about hidden plastics. It just is blowing my mind.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Really
Yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah, it is really in everything. And the kitchen is a great place to start. And then toxin wise, also personal care products is a big one. And this I have started many years ago of like looking at cleaner makeup brands, cleaner skincare, hair care. How can we reduce our exposure to BPA and BPB and all these different BPs now, phthalates and these endocrine disruptors that really wreak havoc on our hormones. And that is a big component of having an irregular menstrual cycle or developing something like PCOS, endometriosis, things like that. So it's hard when people kind of listen to podcast episodes like this sometimes because they might get overwhelmed of like, oh, I need to kind of change all my products and change all of these things about my life. But I just want people to know that it really is a journey and it takes a long time to like make these switches and that's totally okay. Like even the little tweaks that you do today are important and don't get overwhelmed. We're all on a journey together.
Yes, yes. Thank you for saying
Beautifully
that. I think
said.
it's safe to share with our audience. They've heard us rant about EWG, and it's just like when you
Yeah.
run out of something, replace it with something better. And
Yeah.
that's just kind of a natural turnover process. Cause yeah,
Oh,
that would be a lot of money to
yeah.
go in and just sweep everything from the bathroom. Be
Yeah.
tough.
Yeah. That's a
Yeah.
great tip, actually. Just like when it runs out, like that's when you do the upgrade. That's really smart way of managing it. Yeah.
Well, I've been
Yeah.
in so many
Yeah.
conversations with clients where they're like, I just bought this. I'm like, oh, okay, well, we'll get through it. And next round, we'll make a different choice.
Nice. Yeah. I love
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
We'll
And
live. We'll live.
there's so many more good brands coming out every day with cleaner stuff, which is
Yeah.
helping. Versus like 10, 15 years ago, it was like you tried to find clean stuff and it was
Yeah.
fake clean or it didn't work.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
we're lucky.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I find now though, like there's a bit of like greenwashing, as they call it, of, calling things natural where the
Yeah.
word natural is not regulated. And then they
Mm-mm.
like put a piece of fruit on the label and it's natural. And then you look at the ingredients and you're like, okay, this doesn't make sense.
Yeah. You
Yeah.
put it in like a green bottle with like a
Yeah.
plant logo. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. It's like complete brainwashing with marketing and labels. So
Yeah,
sad.
it
Yeah.
is. It is. Now that we're, prepping for a baby, I've been doing so much research on like non-toxic baby stuff, which is
Mm.
a whole other thing of like what's in diapers and like all these baby creams and oh my gosh, it's just so toxic. Like baby wipes, all of it. It's like you really have to do your research into finding those clean products.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
one of my friends, she now has 2 kids and same thing.
Nice.
She went down the rabbit hole of safer toys, everything, like and
Nice.
also like the EMFs, because there's all this like fancy tech of like monitoring your baby sleeping and breathing and heart rate and all the things, but it's like, but how much
Yeah.
Bluetooth and EMFs are you then adding in? So, um, yeah, so
Mhm.
Yeah.
you're gonna be a great resource for our audience for that
Yeah.
because that's so needed.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. It is very needed. And I've been doing that research as well as like, even with baby monitors, I like, do I need to have the video on my phone of the baby 24/7? Or do I buy something that is audio only and is a separate device and doesn't require Wi-Fi and is less EMF and less radiation? Right. And so you
Yeah.
have to make those tough decisions. But when health is like, one of your top values, which it is for me, I almost always try to do the healthier thing. Um, Even if it costs more, or even if it's annoying or more upkeep or more work, because I do think that the benefits are there on the other side of it.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
We can take the extra step.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
One last thing I wanted to touch on that feels like it's floating in the air, maybe the elephant in the room, but like
Yeah.
our nervous system through this process, because
Mhm.
we can so easily feel overwhelmed with all the things that we need to do, but
Yeah.
keeping your body in a stress management zone and down regulated, I think is so important to creating safety and building another human inside of your body. Any advice you can give about just down regulation and keeping your nervous system in a healthy place?
Yeah, absolutely. And I do talk about this in the foundation module in my course because, like you said, like stress is so, so important. And I would argue that when you start taking care of yourself better and employing some of these pillars, it naturally kind of reduces your stress. When you're eating healthier, you are now exercising every day, you're taking these supplements, things kind of come down naturally, but there's definitely extra things that you can do. So, something that I really focus on for this and what I was doing when I was, preparing to try was affirmations and visualization. So, visually picturing yourself pregnant, like picturing in your mind, like looking at a positive pregnancy test, like
Mm.
saying those words, I'm going to be a mother. I was born to be a mother. I can do this. Making those affirmations and really making it part of what you believe to be true about yourself. and replacing the fear that can kind of be there, which I definitely had to do. And I went through myself of like fear of not being able to get pregnant, right? Was such a motivation for me in order to get healthier. But at one point, you do have to swap out that fear for belief. Like, I believe I can do this. I believe I can get pregnant and be successful at this. And once you kind of focus on the positive side of it like that, that is when the stress can kind of come down and you can feel better and more rooted in yourself. At least that's what I found. And that's kind of like my general recommendation for people.
Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mindset's so important. I love that. Affirmations, visualizations. That's great.
Yeah. Yeah, it
Great.
is.
Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that.
Yeah. And now as I prepare for birth, it's very similar because I am planning to do a home birth, like unmedicated birth. And I would argue that like it's just a mindset game. Like, and obviously I'm talking to someone who's never given birth. So like catch me on this podcast in a year. we'll see what I say.
I mean, I have no idea what it's like. I can, yeah.
Yeah.
I can only imagine.
Yeah. So I really have been focusing on mindset so much during pregnancy, preparing for birth, because I want to be able to do it in such a natural way. It's building that mental resiliency, and that's tough. That's really tough. Like when you're in pain and you're viewing it as pain, and maybe you've been in labor for hours, what are you going to do? Right? Like, how do you get through that? And it's basically, you have to rely on yourself. So that's like a lot of my prep work now is prepping for birth that's what I'm thinking about. Yeah.
You can probably almost like compare it a little bit to like a cold plunge. I mean, a cold plunge is fast, 2-3 minutes, like not hours and hours of labor, but just the same thing. If you get into the cold plunge and you're like, this sucks, I can't do it, I'm uncomfortable, I'm cold, versus switching that mindset and saying, I'm resilient, I'm strong, all the things, and breathing through it. It's that same mental game, right?
Yeah.
A lot longer.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I actually have a woman who I'm kind of friends with now on Instagram, and she was in my program or is in it. And she was saying that was how she prepared for birth. She just gave birth, I think last month, was through cold therapy and practicing it, because by embracing being uncomfortable and understanding the mental shift that she would have to make in those moments when she had her home birth, with her midwife unmedicated, she was able to tap into that same realm of, I'm uncomfortable, this is tough, but I'm going to go through this. And so that was part of her practice. I don't know what her regimen was, like how often she was doing it, but she was like, I was doing cold therapy every week during pregnancy to prepare. So
wow.
I know, very cool.
Wow.
Are you personally doing cold? Because of course it's a stressor, so we have to kind of modulate how much we're getting. Are you doing like baby cold plunges?
Yeah. So I was doing it during first trimester until I got sick, and then I took a break. And now when I do it, I will do up to 2 minutes, and definitely not as cold as I once did. Definitely not. I don't know what it is in Fahrenheit, but say I would do about like 7 degrees, 8 degrees Celsius now. Whereas before pregnancy, I would do like 1 or 2 degrees Celsius.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Yeah,
So
I know there's a conversion. I can't do it. That just sounds cold as shit. But yeah, I understand what you're trying to say.
Do the math. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So you can just kind of tweak it a little bit, but definitely not longer than 2 minutes, because like you said, like you don't want to stress the body too much. You really do have to be careful. And I would also recommend that ideally, especially for heat and cold therapy, you've been doing it before pregnancy. So you have experience, and it's not just this new thing that you're suddenly doing and you don't really know what you're doing as much. And that's what they recommend for exercise as well, is like you can keep doing what you're doing during pregnancy, but don't suddenly start going to CrossFit when you're pregnant for the first time.
Yeah,
like
no.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like stick to what you know so that you don't hurt yourself and get carried away. Yeah.
Yeah. It's the best advice.
Not the time to start something new.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, Brittany, thank you so much for sharing all of this with our audience. I know it's going to help so many couples out there. So we love what you're doing. One final question for you. Can you leave our audience with one piece of advice, something they should start doing today to optimize their health? And it could be related
Oh
to
my goodness.
fertility or just a very generalized tip.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. There's so much you can start doing today. I think the biggest thing that I'm thinking about lately is like just kind of what we're talking about when we talk about mindset is how do we be more positive, but not like what did they say? Like practical optimism is this new book that I'm reading. And I guess that's probably why I think a lot about it right now. But how do we be more positive and how do we see the good in every single day? And it's not just about being like, oh, happy go lucky and everything's fine and ignoring hardships. I think there actually is a lot of health benefits to it. If you can look back on your day and practice gratitude and be positive and say, hey, maybe I had a really long, hard day at work today, but I got this great email and I got to see my mom and I had this great lunch or whatever. Think about like how that would actually reduce your stress and like support your mental health long term or help with things like depression or anxiety. So my biggest tip would be work on your mindset if you can. Before like adding in any type of supplement or like these quick fixes, like if you're somebody who's mentally struggling, like there's so much that you can do. And I want you to be inspired and happy and just and positive. And yeah, my one last thing, my husband and I have this gratitude practice that we do at the end of every single day. And we've been doing it for 6 years, I think. And when we go to bed at night and we turn off the light, we say one thing that we are grateful of that the other person did that day, no matter what. And you can have the hardest day and he can be so annoying, but I have to find one thing that he did today that I'm grateful for. And it actually makes you see the good every single day. Like it's such a positive little habit and it's profound and it really does work. Yeah.
Ah,
Oh, that
I
is
love that.
so awesome. What a streak. 6 years.
Yeah.
That's so impressive.
It's been for forever. And it's honestly, it's really cute to see what he says too. It'll be, yeah, like sometimes it's more of a compliment, or sometimes he'll just say random things that I didn't even really notice that I was doing for both of us, but he noticed it and then he brings it up and it's really nice. And it's like, how do we cultivate gratitude more in our lives, you know?
Yeah, such
Yeah.
a simple and powerful practice. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think I'm gonna
All
steal
right.
that one.
I know. I'm going to make my husband do that
I
tonight.
know.
I'm gonna tell
Do
him.
Oh, we
it.
actually just shared an article about optimism for longevity and how like having a purpose. So I think gratitude falls
Nice.
into that category, but like
Yeah.
having a
Yeah.
reason can
Yeah.
actually make us live longer, healthier lives. It's definitely better than supplements, any supplement or any biohack.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
of course. Of course. Yeah. You can't supplement your way out of like negative thinking all of the time and that spiral. Yeah.
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 The
I
brain
see
is a
people
chemist. It
trying to do
controls the
that.
whole body.
Mhm.
Yeah. I saw a
Exactly.
quote, actually, funny timing. I saw a quote yesterday and it was like, I don't remember word for word, but make the most of today because you won't see today ever again.
Yeah.
Something like that. And I was like, that is a really good point. So even if it's like a bad day, it's like make the best of it because
Yeah.
it's gonna be gone.
Done.
And blink of
Yeah.
an eye. So
That's crazy to think about though, too, eh? Wow.
yeah.
Like
It's so real.
it's so real. And
Yeah.
also just like life moves so fast. Yeah.
It really does.
Whoa. Okay.
Okay.
There's
Yeah.
some gratitude journaling.
Yeah.
Before we close, can you share with our audience where they can find more of you and access your course?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can go to biohackingbrittany.com, super easy. Everything is listed right there. My podcast is Biohacking with Brittany. All my social handles are Biohacking Brittany. And so if you have any questions, you can send me a message on Instagram. That's where I am the most active and typically like interact with people. And I get a lot of women reaching out about like personal questions about their health. So if you have personal questions, we can chat there and I would love to be able to help you out.
Beautiful.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. This was great.
Yeah,
Thanks
this
for
was a
hanging
great
out with us.
conversation.
Yes, very
Yes.
excited to share. And thank you to everyone for tuning in. We will see you next time.